watching the Sensesphere channel, and now some chilled discussion after the week's angst, with the Doctor Who Detox Hour, or two.
All right, don't they? Go on. Got your Christmas shopping then? Got your own Doctor Who stash ordered for yourself for Christmas? I don't know. I feel as I buy for Christmas for me first. It's like, it's bad, isn't it? Seen the latest Doctor Who Christmas trailer? Are you looking forward to it yet? We'll have a damn good look at and talk about it. Doctor Who at Christmas should be a home run, really, shouldn't it? It's how it used to feel. Well, we have some delightful items for you, as you would expect when it comes to our detox. To ease your last-minute worries about what to buy those very awkward relatives who don't like Doctor Who. I mean, how... We're so easy to buy for, aren't we? The detoxers Drain and Dan are here to talk the Doctor, and Boomer Doug will be here in his time eddy. So it is a full detox and therapy treatment today. So sit back, turn on your nostalgia volume nodule onto full blast, and let's go, eh? But in case we do have a toxic moment, remember, it is possible in the Doctor Who fandom. I do have my alarm for you, but be warned, we may have to discuss Peter Capaldi never returning to the show. Oh, yes, he gave an interview in the Hello magazine, and I've got all the details on that. And, of course, Paul McGann's Eighth Doctor getting down and dirty with a fella in Big Finish. So there may have to be a toxic fandom alert. So, just to get us going, just to get us fired up for the weekend as well, really. So, of course, if you've just discovered us, hello, please give us a like and subscribe. I'd so appreciate that. You can write to us on various things. X is a decent one to write to me. I can see that a lot. And the sensesphere@gmail.com. So, do join us. All right, good to see you. Detox starts now. And it can't go on without having my friends on. So let's get Dan on, first of all. Good to see you, Dan.
G'day, Brendan. Hello, everyone. It's really good to be back.
I know he was telling me off last week because he said, where's your detox? Like a lot of people were saying. And of course, it's just, as we were saying just before we started the show, family events, you know, my mum's 80.
You're feeling tox blocked.
Yes, I know. It was a very bad weekend, therefore I never got a detox. But sometimes you just have to do family stuff, don't you? So
Absolutely.
Good to see you back. I was dying to talk to you anyway. And of course, we've got Dwayne from Sirens of Audio. Good to see you as well.
G'day, it's good to see you, and it's good to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. I know, bless him. And both of them were saying, where is it? Where is the toxic? But right. Well, of course, that was my fault because you get waylaid on other things. Now, of course, before I get started on any details of that, part of our detox is, of course, things that have caught your eye and stuff during the week. So let's start with our ups and downs of the week item. Well, there you go. The promise is there. Ups and downs of the week. Oh, we've got a full thread as well. I see John Yulden. Good to see you. SG, Lee Smith, Julian Clark's there. Of course, a Capaldi fan, dresses up as Capaldi. So good to see. And I'll say morning to you all a bit more. So We just so happen to have two fellas here who did actually meet up just about 2 weeks ago. They may mention that a bit later on. I'm sure we're going to be talking about what Sirens Audio got up to with Sylvester McCoy and Janet and all the gossip. We'll have to ask them, won't we? So basically, Dan, ups and downs of your Doctor Who week.
Well, I'll spare the Sylvester McCoy talk for later on, but I actually got a 2-for-1 deal on the Celestial Toymaker and Daleks in Color, so I've revisited those this week, which was I was actually pleasantly surprised. So
Yeah.
and I was actually on the Celestial Toymaker one. There's actually a I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's an escape room, a William Hartnell escape room special with Peter Purvis and
Yes.
Maureen O'Brien. That was really interesting. It was fascinating to watch. Anyway,
I'll have to.
I haven't seen it. I must. I've got the DVD,
Worth-
so I'll have to check it out.
Definitely worth a watch. Because where was it? The David Warner's partner. Like the lady that
Lisa.
played Cara. Lisa Bauman. She was in it with them, and I tell you what, there was some interesting. It would have been very frustrating.
Well, I mean, a bit like Dwayne. I mean, you stockpile sometimes. I've got the Celestial Toymaker there, but it's there with. I still have to finish season 15. I've got a backlog, but that's a nice place to be as you approach Christmas. Just before we move on any further, Boomer Dog will be with us with his little item, but of course, as he says, he's recovering from eye surgery, and so we're giving our best, Doug. Rest up, just put your headphones on and listen to us there. But I hope you're all right. But yeah, I'm sure we'll detox you well with this week. So, Dwayne, an up and down of your Doctor Who week?
Oh, best wishes to Doug too. Hope you recover quickly.
Yeah,
My up for the week would have to be, I would say, I recorded a podcast this week with Philip, my usual podcast host, and Kenny Smith, who does Vortex magazine for Big Finish, and we were just having a conversation about the last 25 years of Doctor Who on Big Finish, because can you believe it's been that long that they've been producing Doctor Who for 25 years? And just some of the standout moments from the last 2.5 decades we were talking about, and really enjoyed recording that podcast. That's coming out in a couple of days' time. As far as downers go, well, I could be sarcastic and say that I watched the Christmas trailer, but I did watch it, and I'm not feeling down much about anything at all. Feeling a lot more. I'm looking forward to the colorization of the war games. I'm sure Dan knows, because I mentioned that at the event, that I would much prefer to have the full 10 episodes colorized, of course.
Yeah.
But there are reasons for these things happening, and it looks really good. So I'm fascinated to see what they do with it.
Right. Well, and everybody in the thread, as we're on the ups and downs of the Doctor Who week, join us. So as Lee Smith says, a mega down was the cringe. The unspecial trailer. Lee Smith, on Sunday night, I'm going to do a proper analysis. I want to spend time in it, but I think Dwayne and Dan, if you did see, I mean, I've seen it, I think once or twice. When you see a futuristic city done well, CGI or whatever, you see, that gets me going, because I want to see futuristic. I want to be off Earth. I want to be somewhere else. Now, it might be Earth, of course, because it's timey-wimey hotel, but it just gets me going. That's what I like. I want to see a sci-fi metropolis and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not feeling negative about the Christmas special. I'm just not. I'm not gripped by it. I will watch it. I always look forward to New Who. I'm always approaching it with hope. I'd like to be surprised, but I don't know. It feels we're missing. There's a special sauce missing from the trailers of late, isn't there?
Yeah, and I can't put my finger on it. I mean, I'll be watching. I will. Yeah, I am a Doctor Who fan, and I see it through. Like I always compare it to when a football fan. You see them up, you see them down. You just go through with it. They change managers, but they're my team. It is my Doctor Who. I won't be going anywhere fast. You just hope it's more to what you like. So, but one of mine. If I just showed you this now, lads, I know you know what these are. The good old Viren. Okay, so one of my highlights of the week, and I'm going to shout out to a friend of the channel and a friend of Boomer Doug's channel and Sirens of Audio, which is I Love to Be. It's Paul, and he's from my hometown. And so, if I just show you for a second why this is such a thing, I got this the other
Oh
day.
wow,
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's nice.
look at that
That's
Viren.
cool.
I know. We had to
That
go
looks
into
more
the-
real than the original.
Oh, and it does. You know, you can do the bits, the mandibles move and everything. It honestly, look at that. So, I might have to have him against the Who Pits at some point. But yeah, there you go, a Riran. So there's one of my treats of the week. Is purchasing that from the Who Race Shop in Stockton, Teesside, which I didn't know existed. But thanks to Paul, we had a really good chat. He loves our channel. He loves various channels of all those lads here, and he does support very well. And yeah, I had to get it. So that's one of my treats of the week. The Riran.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Don't ask me the price though. So yeah, that was definitely one of those moments. They had a war machine there, but the war machine was like 200 quid, and you think, but it nice bulky war machine, and I thought, oh yeah. So
It wouldn't have cost that much to build the original.
probably not. So yeah, the Riran, and who can deny the Riran? Because they were that sound effect they had as well. Remember when Sarah had to go through that duct, and it was and whoa, because I mean Doug loves all them B movie stuff. You know the Joan Collins was in that the Giant Ants one, you know, Empire of the Ants or something. Yeah, that kind of always got to me.
I think that's what like with the new trailer, all the monsters and the CGI just look. It's so good that it's bad. Like
Yeah.
you need the practical effects to make it Doctor Who, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do quite. Now let's get to it. People are mentioning it. I mean, Julian Gabriel Clark's mentioned it. The Christmas episode just looked like a bit of fluff for kids, but I'm not a fan of Christmas episodes anyway. I'm like you, Julian, on this one. I can't judge it the same because, especially Stephen Moffat Christmas specials tend to be quite for the kids. Capaldi had all the best ones, hands down. Dr. Mysterio, was it Captain Mysterio? Mr. Mysterio, all that sort of stuff. It didn't do it for me. Anyway, so the Radio Times has landed in Britain, and there it is. And as you will see there for a moment, if I just show you it properly, Carol's Turkey and no TARDIS. What, no TARDIS again? They really do seem to have a problem with this TARDIS. I mean, spend a whole load of money and never show it. I understand we're in a time hotel, but gosh, are they embarrassed by this TARDIS or something? Do they not know what to do with it?
Not getting their money's worth out of it, that's for sure. So there's no Millie by the sound of it either in the special.
No, that one of the interviews given by Stephen Moffat is that he's doing the bridge. I mean, I think he's bailed out Russell Davies again, who I think got behind with an awful lot of work. He's doing an awful lot of work and has bailed him out to write this Christmas special. And of course, it's an awkward Christmas special because you've just lost one companion and it's pre another one. And it can be a bit awkward. You've got a doctor crying his eyes out in the TARDIS, so you know you've got you've got a few things to mop up. Are you lamenting?
We did have that with the Runaway Bride, though.
We did. We did.
Yeah, that's true.
And that worked really well, I thought.
I just find it's almost like that what and the Titanic hitting the TARDIS and everything. You get this kind of, it's almost a formula for Christmas that the Doctor's on his own, actually. Seems to be, and then we can have a special companion like Kylie Minogue or somebody, a one-off, or Donna Noble, who was a one-off for the Runaway Bride, as you say, until she wasn't. But I know it's like, I know what you're saying, Dan. I mean, I see the pictures, I see a lot of publicity shots, and it's just, it's not firing me up. It's not turning me away. It's just not firing me up. And I don't know if it's just the obsession with Christmas and Santa Claus. You know, I just don't know. I don't know.
We need an invasion of the dinosaurs, T-Rex.
Now I know you're Aussies and I know you're over there, but I will ask you how you're going to view it and what version of it you're going to do. But that's the British version. Obviously, terrestrial TV is gradually dying, but how does this grab you if you saw this? You know, you've got Toy Story 3, takes you into the afternoon, then you've got the Minions movie, Tiddler, the
What
King.
the hell's Tiddler?
I don't know. It must be some little Tiddler program. No, the King's Christmas broadcast, then the Weakest Link Christmas, Strictly Come Dancing Christmas, Doctor Who Joy to the World, Wallace and Gromit, EastEnders, Call the Midwife, Gavin and Stacey back for one-off. Does that kind of fire you up if you were in Britain happened to be for Christmas?
Not really, because I'm in Australia. We don't really have a Christmas schedule as such like that. We're through the summer here. We're just watching the cricket most of the time, cricket or tennis or something like that. So sport's usually the thing that's going, not winter television. But I'm not really a huge fan of what's strictly called here in Australia, Dancing with the Stars, isn't it? I'm not a huge fan of that show either. I mean, Wallace and Gromit could be interesting with the kids. But yeah, to be honest, because it's not a tradition here in Australia, so it doesn't really do anything for me.
Yes, your thing is the big Boxing Day cricket fixture, isn't it? At the MCG type thing. That's what normally happens over there because you're that type of country. It's sunny and all the rest of it. In fact, in Victoria, I've had Christmases there where it's about 35, 36. In Brisbane, it's around 33 on Christmas Day. Sydney, what would that be on Christmas Day normally, Dan?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But, man, you guys like get going early, like Doctor Who at 5 o'clock. That's even earlier than when we used to see it after school.
Well, this is
what dark then.
Yeah.
This is what I was going to ask you, because whether you're in Australia or Britain, it's interesting what the actual program makers think. And the BBC, who obviously have, as I think Julian Gabriel Clark was saying, you know, they've given it the Radio Times front cover. So, oh my God, they obviously prize it. But then I was shocked. I thought 5:10 is almost like the kiddie show. It used to be you got the Queen's broadcast, obviously, at 3, and then you got some Disney movie or something like that. I remember over the years in the 90s, you got Hook and stuff like that with Dustin Hoffman. It tended to be you've had your meal, you've had the Queen, and then all the parents are going to nod off because they've had too much to drink. The kids have a kids movie, and then it starts to ramp up through the night. Well, Doctor Who seems to be in the kind of sleepy tea time slot.
Yeah, well, we like here in Australia. I mean, the sun for here in Sydney wouldn't be going down until 7:30, 8 o'clock. So that's why I always laugh when people were saying, "Oh, it was a nice day in Britain," and that was why Doctor Who ratings were down. It's like, well, if that was the case here, you wouldn't have ratings on any television show because every day's a nice day in Sydney.
So, is it possible where it's located there on the program that Strictly is very popular? Wallace and Gromit is eagerly anticipated. People are just going to leave their tellies on, and we'll get some decent viewing figures for that day. Do you think?
Yeah, I have to say, while I'm saying, as you're talking about Doctor Who being on at 5, Strictly Come Dancing, as you've just pointed out, is very early. Now, Strictly Come Dancing, I think, is perceived by the BBC at the moment as still stronger than Doctor Who on ratings. And yet that is very early. So in the old-fashioned scheduling way, are they trying to hook early, like you said, Dwayne? Are they trying to hook in early people just to keep it? Yeah, I know it's easy with remote controls to switch, but just to stay roughly on BBC. You've got a variety show at 4 o'clock, basically. Then you've got a drama for the family, Doctor Who. And then you've got good old Wallace and Gromit. You can see how much that's been promoted in advance. That with our little kind of welcome to BBC One, when we have our kind of Christmas globe or whatever, it's Wallace and Gromit this year because they are the stars. So yeah, my only little concern.
It looks like after lunch they're going for the King's broadcast after lunch, and that's when everyone's digesting through the afternoon. By the look of that. To me.
Yeah, and then it gets serious on the night. You get a bit of EastEnders, you know, whatever will happen there: violence, death, rock and roll. Call the midwife. Some
Brendan, how early would Doctor Who normally go out at this time of year? Like, for
well,
you
I was
guys?
looking. What I was looking at compared to 1 year, for example. So when David Tennant became the Doctor, Christmas Invasion, it was 7 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
Now
that was at its prime.
Yeah, and I think this is what's happening. But you see, as I'm calling out, thinking, gosh, they've gone early with Doctor Who. But as Dwayne quite rightly has said, Strictly Come Dancing is shockingly early. So, you know, I can't complain about one because they seem to have taken two of their big hitters perceived and put them quite early on, maybe to really line up and ramp up a big ratings for Wallace and Gromit and then keep them for EastEnders. But I feel as though Doctor Who, as is the past, you know, in the 70s and 80s, especially the 70s, you know, Basil Brush, Doctor Who at tea time, and Doctor Who was the start of hooking people into BBC One, and then it built up. They never expected it to get massive ratings, obviously. But I mean, I saw Boomer Doug mention an old Christmas schedule with Morecambe and Wise. I still would prefer that one. I know I'm of a certain age, but look at this. You got The Queen at 3, Billy Smart's Circus, The Wizard of Oz, Through the Looking Glass, Sons of Praise. Yeah, they get rid of religion on BBC One now, don't they? That's not allowed. Bruce Forsyth and the Generation Game, the Mikey Arwood, he was an impressionist Christmas show, Morecambe and Wise, and then some late movie. I don't know. We seem to have gone for a bit of game show now. I know Generation Games like that, but was very family. There's more laughs on that. I know there's Gavin and Stacey later, but yeah. Anyway, so there you go. Look at the comparison there. Are you lads, you know, Aussies, it's hot, it's outdoors. I mean, God, we still try and have Christmas meals on Christmas Day in Australia, which seems madness, really, because, you know, trying to eat Yorkshire puddings and a roast on Christmas Day when it's hot, when you actually want something light. Do you envy the Northern Hemisphere type Christmas? Or do you think, oh, we'll get it once for the kids or something, but, you know, the snow if possible. But or are you just well acquainted with your way of doing it?
I won't speak for Wayne, but for us up here in Sydney, I think, yeah, we're just used to it being hot. I mean, it's turned here in the last few weeks to being quite oppressive and humid at the moment. So, you know, it's kind of getting to the point where it's so hot now where it's almost you're better off going inside and sitting in the aircon.
Yeah. Trouble is, you have to shut the curtains over there, sunblock and everything to try and settle down. Which do you prefer, Dwayne?
Oh, it doesn't really bother me. I'm usually away at that time of the year, so I will be away this year. And you were asking before how we were going to see the episode. Well, I'm in no hurry to see this episode. Normally, I would try and find some internet somewhere and have a look at it, but I'm going to be in a bit of a patchy internet area. And but like we've been saying, I'm quite indifferent to the episode, so I'm quite happy to wait until I get home. Probably in the new year, early January, before I see it.
Well, so I mean, they're building up obviously for this Christmas trailer with the Doctor Who magazine as well, and you know he's in a dressing gown. Doesn't he look dressed like what was he called? Was it Arthur Dent in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? I get that vibe about it.
That is an Arthur Dent,
yeah.
Or the 10th Doctor in the Christmas Invasion, which he was dressed. He was doing an Arthur Dent there too.
That's very true. That's very true. So yeah, and these cards came with the Doctor Who magazine. So if I just go big screen for you, the Time Hotel. Discover the ancient pyramids of Giza, Christmas everywhere all at once, come to Everest, journey back there in 1953, all the fun, none of the danger of the Blitz in London. So actually, it seems to be given a slight. I'd seen the synopsis of the Time Hotel, but I didn't realize that actually it's going to do Ray Bradbury's A Sound of Thunder, basically, isn't it? Where you're on a time safari. In Sound of Thunder. In this, you go into a time hotel, you check in, and instead of saying, "Can I have very fluffy or hard pillows?" In some hotels, you'll say, "Can I go to 1953 and be on the top of Everest, please? Thank you very much." I assume.
I love it. I love the idea. It's a great sci-fi idea.
Yes.
Just how it's executed. That's going to be the thing.
Yeah. The promotions at the moment just have this greatest hits kind of Moffat greatest hits kind of feel to it. There's a lot of memberberries, I feel, even in this on the page. These are touch points that I think Moffat's touched on in most of his stories. So
yeah, I mean, the best sci-fi concepts are easy to get across without bogging you down in too much, and a time hotel is kind of lands, I think, in Doctor Who territory quite easily. It's just whether
needs a speech bubble on the London Blitz, doesn't it? Against the masks with "Are you my mummy?"
And my mummy.
Yeah. I
mean,
mean,
even the Spitfires as well from Victory of the Daleks, and there's a lot of things in there.
So it intrigued me a little bit more that you could visit this time hotel. Of course, it looks like the Nicola Coughlan character she seemed just to check in as if it was an average hotel in that first trailer. She didn't seem to be wanting to, she wasn't asked at reception, was she? Do you want to go to any special time zone? So whether she's there by accident, it then intrigues me about the dinosaurs, Silurians, etc., because suddenly you can start to see how it all blurs together. And of course, is this a bit like the Miniscope in Carnival of Monsters, where basically if one time zone breaks into another time zone, is this War Games? Is this you can sneak from one area to another? So if you go through the wrong door, you end up, I'm just wondering if that's kind of where we're going to go with this.
Could be really cool.
Yeah. That'd be a nice twist if it did have a war game sort of link to it.
Yeah, true. Well, there you go.
There may be there's method to all their madnesses, aren't there? Really, I mean, it's like a lot of us, and we will talk about the war games for a second soon. The war games, some people are suspecting might be a tee up for season 7 Blu-ray collection. People are trying to see, is there some tactic going on here? But
I did note in the trailer that he mentioned that there's an old enemy, and I wonder who we think the old enemy might be. Whether it's a red herring that it's the Daleks, or whether it is the Daleks, I don't know. But I've got some theories about who some enemies coming up in series 2 could be, because there's some clues out there. Last year, Big Finish put out a story, a box set, and they referred to Mavity in that. So there was a link to the television series at the time. And I just listened to a Big Finish story today where there was an agent of the White Guardian, and they called it the Guardian of Chaos and the Guardian of Order. And of course, we've had merchandise just recently released, haven't we, with the Black Guardian called the Agent, the Guardian of Chaos. So I'm thinking that maybe the Guardians might be involved with season 2.
And there's one line in the Doctor Who magazine where RTD, talking cryptically, he says one of the episodes has an acronym TRR, the Red Robot somebody guessed. But then he also said that he's just had Landon. Now this might be season 3. You see, this is when but when he writes up stuff in his kind of diary, and he says he's just had landed a script with one of the deadly weapons from the Chris Eccleston season, which had me intrigued. So, I think it is interesting, and of course, we do enjoy the speculation as much as actually watching Sure. Anyway, there's loads
A
of
bit more,
joining us.
actually than watching the show. But anyway,
Yeah. I like the analysis now, of course. Surprise, surprise. Triple Jazz, good to see you from Hobart. Rick Storm, Stephen Scott. We've got Lord the unmentionable. There he is. He's there again. Mount Isaway, I think. Anthony Parkinson's been here since the
And
beginning.
Moppy.
Yeah, they're all joining in. So, Christmas. We're still on our ups and downs. Now, did you see this? I know I'm kind of sending you stuff that's been in publications in Britain, but the Radio Times has done an interview with our showrunner and writer. And there's lovely Stephen Moffat and Russell Davies having a lovely domestic, setting up their domestic Christmas tree as if. And they've Doctor Whoified it. So if I make it bigger for you, where Stephen Moffat sat, we've got, I can see the Ark in Space target book on its side, and various lovely things. There's a half-opened Dalek pack. You've got weeping angel cherubs on the other side. You've got nice little kind of Easter eggs, so to speak. And there's when Russell Davies is there, he's got, I think it's Castrovalva's target book over there in the Armageddon Factor. I don't know if it's just been placed there for them. I can't imagine really them choosing those. Well,
Armageddon Factor. There's Guardians again.
Very true. Oh God, you're on it.
Oh, there's some hints in there. I think if you were that way inclined.
Yeah, gosh, Dwayne, you are hot to trot today. He's finding every little clue going.
I'm convinced the Guardians are in this next season.
Oh right, we'll have to time frame this. Yeah, right. He said it first. You can't do the Guardian. Oh, right. Okay, then. You can't do the Guardians unless you have replacements for Cyril Luckham and Valentine Dial. It's a shame, isn't it? Because
quite true, because they're quite dead.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Inquisitor, isn't it? And the Valiard, and we say, you can't. Can you do a Valiard without Michael Jaston, really? Because so distinctive. But I think people said that about Roger Delgado's Master, didn't they? But we seem to continue afterwards.
Yeah.
I know we still respect them. Anyway, I mentioned Christmas shopping. I mean, I'd love to see this happening. I mean, I don't know if these Cybermen have the same vibe, which is, you go Christmas shopping and you're thinking, I don't know what I'm looking for. When is this over? What is going on? I don't know if I'm describing a male psyche more so here. It's like, but yeah, those Cybermen look as though they're going to go into 5 or 6 different shops and just attack.
Considering like all the Cybermen we've had now through New Who, there's still no greater Cyberman fight scene than 5 Doctors, where they get slaughtered. There's nothing as engaging as that.
No, they did have something about it. The music helped. I think it was John Nathan Turner directing, wasn't it? Actually, fantastic. It was the moment, wasn't it? It was.
It felt like it hurt.
Yeah, but it was ramped up by this new enemy as well. I mean, it wasn't just his Cybermen. But yes, so Chris. Now you mentioned, Dwayne, it's your fault. You started us off. So I don't know what we're gonna say, but just in case. Because I've done 2 streams where we've mentioned the war games, and there's never been an agreement yet. So I'm putting this up not because I want to go over all the arguments again, but there may be some we want to just kind of revisit for a second. But Rich Tipple, who obviously he's on Twitter and he's obviously a colorizer and everything, and he just tweeted that they had a producer's screening for the war games in color. With a lot of the, the producers behind the scenes. You've got Benjamin Cook, Mark Ayres, etc., etc. And, it should be a great day out, and you can see them all there looking fairly happy, and why not? And of course, just as a reminder, that's part of the Christmas schedule in Britain, BBC 4 on the 23rd. I mean, we're getting treated over here. We've got the BBC Proms, we've got the war games in colour, and we've got on Christmas Day. I mean, there's 3 elements of Doctor Who. I mean, gosh, we can't moan that we're not getting treats. But is there anything you want to bring up, Dwayne, about the war games in colour that certainly you haven't said on our stream, but just that while you're ruminating?
Yes, I certainly do. And what I didn't realise is that one of my friends was actually working on it. He was under NDA for the last 18 months. And we catch up at the events that we've put on, and he happened to be at the one at Sydney, which was the day it was announced. So it was announced that sort of previous evening, and the trailer dropped through the night. So we actually showed the trailer at our Sydney Sylvester event, and then we invited Aaron. Aaron Klimas was one of the colorists. There were 6 colorists, and he came up to the stage, and we had a bit of a chat with him about what he did. He said he'd been working on the project for the last 18 months, working long days, doing about 3 to 4 seconds of colorization per day, and just talking a little bit about the process. And after that, Dan and I both got together after, and we were both sort of saying, well, we kind of feel a bit bad for all the work that went into the Daleks in color now, because now, we've got a human face behind this project, that we're in the presence with. So we were chatting with Aaron too before he came up, before the event started too. So yeah, I'm loath to think that it's going to be cut back, because I think the War Games is shorter when I watch it than some 4-parters that I watch. It just goes that quickly for me personally. But you've got to keep in mind, it hasn't been done for DVD release or for Blu-ray release specifically. It's been done for BBC. Is it BBC 4?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
been done specifically for, or is it 3? It's been one of those channels. It's been done specifically for them, for their schedule, and they've put up the money to do it. So that's why it's been produced primarily, and we get the benefit of a Blu-ray release afterwards. I did go out and have a look again at the Daleks in color with a different set of glasses on, after talking with Aaron, after knowing how much work they go into it. And well, the Daleks in color, I always appreciated the first half of it anyway, pretty much. It was only the second half
Yes.
it seemed to really fall apart. And I enjoy the color aspects of it. And I think the Daleks had some really, like, Ben Cook has been criticized severely, but when he got it right in the Daleks, I thought it was really clever. Like, there were scenes in the opening episode of the Daleks where you're looking at cast members talking in one scene, and then the next scene the other cast members are talking, but he overlaid the sound of them talking over the top of the other scene. I thought that edit was really clever. We can criticize the flashbacks and Marquez music and whatever, but maybe there was some lessons that they learned in there that they will take to the War Games. And it sounded like the team was a bit bigger on this one, and yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it.
So
I'm looking forward to it.
Can I just ask your opinions on this though? Which is, in the end, we're going to see what we see, and then we can make a final judgment on it. A bit like you said with Daleks in color. The War Games in color, the main concern I've got is why they've picked that story when there's not many, but there's other Troughton stories out there. There's a couple of 4-parters that you wouldn't have to mess with.
My number one would be Tomb of the Cybermen for sure. That would be the one that you would think, but perhaps they were thinking, well, we've got the Daleks, you got the War Games, it bookends the black and white era. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Who knows?
Yes, and I've heard that said, that there's a possibility there. The Daleks in color, if you go back to it, there's a moment in it with Susan, obviously clearly colorized, and they use that in season 1. So it's, in other words, they've teed up the Susan twist by using some of the Daleks in color. So again, Doctor Who fans are going, so why the War Games in color? And of course, it's all about the regeneration, which obviously we didn't see in the original because it wasn't set up like that. Um, what's your thoughts though on the fact that you could have picked the Mind Robber in color, surreal and so different? You could have had the Crotons is more kind of bog standard, but it's in a better quality condition as a film to colorize. Tomb of the Cybermen. I know they were desperate to do a Troughton, so I'm sticking with Troughton. Although personally, I think the Aztecs would, or the Keys of Marinus would look stunning in color.
I think maybe the Mind Robber's a bit too out there. You just made me think of something else in relation to the Daleks. You know, the color clips right at the end of the Daleks in color, which ended with the toy maker laughing. So perhaps with the regeneration happening, does that mean there's a regeneration coming up as well? Is that a clue that we might be getting a regeneration, because they incorporated the toy maker into a future story with the Daleks? So maybe they're doing that again. Who knows?
I think the sort of the takeaways, because I've heard a lot of people speculating on the whys and the wherefores and the decisions, and a lot of conspiracy. But the reality is these things were commissioned like 2 years ago, really, and the guys have been working on it for 18 months at their end, and the edits had to happen before that could even happen. So they're only coloring. They've only been coloring the final edits. They haven't been coloring, the whole product, hoping to, and just cutting off the bits that they don't need. So, there is commercial considerations that they've obviously had right from the outset, back when RTD and them took over, when Bad Wolf took over the brand. So a lot of this stuff, I think, was done with pretty honorable intentions. And I think people underestimate how much work's gone into this. And I think that's probably why Dwayne and I, after listening to the people who've actually been working on it, sort of went, man, we're probably being a bit harsh in terms of what it takes to actually pull this off.
I know, and I'm always cognizant of that. I look at this picture and I'm envious. I'd love to be that type of creator where I was involved in making an element of Doctor Who. I think we all would, wouldn't we? So I feel I can empathize, and if I'm passionate about Doctor Who, I can guess they're doing it all for the right reasons. Let's be honest. And it's one of those nights you'll have a drink, you're celebrating, you've finally done it. It's going to get broadcast soon, and you should have a nice sense of relief. I get all that, and I get why you two lads had an interest in having a look at the Daleks in colour again, because once you get that human touch, you think, well, they've put a lot into it, an awful lot of skill and hard work. But my argument would also be, but equally so did Terence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and everybody who made the original. So is it still all right to take 2.5 hours out and add a regeneration in? I mean, if you're saying for BBC Four, it has to...
If they were going to destroy the originals and then we're left with just the cut down version, then yeah, it would be outrageous. But we're not. We've always got the originals.
The other thing way I rationalize it too, understanding how they do the process now, is that, say they've colored 90 minutes of frames now, and it is literally they're coloring frame by frame. Well, then they're 90 minutes closer to coloring the whole thing in real terms. So, who knows, maybe down the track there's a commercial reality to the season 7 box set as well, where they can find more money to keep going. So you never know what's around the corner, I guess. Or maybe if all the work gets done on this now, there's an opportunity for AI and things in the future to extrapolate the work that's been done. But I mean, Terence Dicks did manage to cut the War Games down into a target novelization, and I rewatched the War Games this week just out of interest to say, could you really do it? And I think it's fair to say you could. They were writing to get 10 episodes to screen. There's no doubt they could get get there with
There is absolutely
more.
padding, but it's probably
Yeah,
one of the best examples of padding I've ever seen.
But you see,
Plus the resolution's a bit. It's padded quite a bit, and then even at the end, it's very much like the Master in Terror of the Autons, where it's like suddenly they've got this dastardly plan, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, it's all going to shit. And it's like, well, what was the actual plan?
yeah.
It never made sense.
So good old war games. Well, there it is in color, because one of the cards that came with the Doctor Who magazine was this colorized card. So yes, it's all teed up. Let me just kind of and calm again. There we go. I was talking about this yesterday, and I was talking about this with Paul the other day. Oh, that Weetabix diorama from about 1975. Oh, I remember this. It's just you can't keep these things. But look at that. That calms me down. I remember taking that to school, age 6, when it was one of those.
The roundels look like Connect 4.
They do, don't they?
Different colours.
They do. I have to say, look at that. I mean, there's so much detail there in that TARDIS. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. So calming. Great to play with. Great. Now, we've got an item. I just want to say, if it's ups and downs of the week, and yes, we're going to do Peter Capaldi's quotes in a minute, folks, about whether he comes back. But I think it's really important that we've got 2 lads on here, and we've also got Dwayne, who's been co-producing and organising these events. So basically, we've got the men in the right position. Now, I've got a new item. So basically, we're talking about celebrity materialisation. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. If I've got any item about seeing actors in the world, but it wasn't by accident, was it, Dwayne? Because you organised to bring them over to Australia. And so I suppose I should start with the first picture, which is there's you two of the detoxers next to. There he is.
Sylvester.
Doctor,
Sylvester.
yeah.
I should point out too that the main organizer for these events is my co-host Philip. He's the driving force behind these. I find myself often just tagging along for the ride. So yeah, full credit to Philip for this. But it has been a pleasure, I can tell you, hanging out with Sylvester for a few weeks. He's very easy to be around, and yeah, it was good. Dan got to sit with him, and then Sylvester was moved to the other end of the table. I swapped seats, so we got to sit with him again. So that was cool.
So
That was our Sydney event. So that was probably our biggest numbers there. We had about 100 and would have had over 130 there for that one. So that was good.
And you've good old Janet as well. They look like a good team.
Yeah. That was a bookshop signing that we did at Aaron's Collectibles in Melbourne. A great collectible store. Anyone in Melbourne should definitely go and check it out.
So come on then. How was it? How, your ups and downs of these events?
I don't think there were any downs. It was incredible. It was amazing from start to finish. I knew Janet from last year when we had her over the first time. She comes over regularly to visit family, so she was here for that already. And when she spotted, she was already at the bookshop when I arrived with Sylvester, and she just looked at me and said, "Bunny," using my surname. That was fantastic. And yeah, just hanging out with them for a couple of days was great. Lots of things get said and talked about that, when people say, "Oh, I could never mention any of that stuff officially," it's absolutely true. It all gets said.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this was at the time when that tweet went out on Sylvester's account. That was politically divisive, shall we say? So we did talk about that, and Sylvester gave us, his reasons for asking for that tweet to be out there, and he had decent reasons. So,
oh yeah, so the reasonable scoop there though is that he was aware of the tweet, because there was a speculation it was his.
It wasn't his. No, it definitely came from him. It was him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, having met him,
that picture.
Oh, sorry.
Can I just mention that picture there was in Hobart. Was the only place where we did a live commentary, and we did episode 4 of Remembrance of the Daleks. So he's doing a live commentary there on that episode. It was great.
God, you certainly got your money's worth, didn't you? Regarding they were doing signings. Obviously, they did panels. You've got the small VIP kind of setup, haven't you?
Yes.
They do look on good form, as good professionals should be. Look, so she signed the TARDIS there as well.
Yep. And they're great. They're both great together. Sylvester's got so much energy that he says, "Oh, are we going to do a Q&A?" Like that's his most favorite thing because he gets in amongst the audience. That's my son and daughter getting their autographs from Sylvester in Hobart. Got to meet him, and a couple of days later, when I was with him, he said, "Oh, your kids, did they have a good time?" He was concerned about my kids enjoying themselves, so that was really nice.
It is always lovely. I mean, they are real people. They are humans. He's a granddad and all the rest of it. So of course, yeah,
and he really does love it too. That's the thing that's so infectious, is that is the passion for, here he is 40 years later, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
So that's our VIP dinner in Hobart. That was nice. So how was it for you, Dan? You hadn't been to an event like this for a while.
Oh, look, no, it was. I just thought it was fantastic. I loved, even just talking to other fans in the queues and stuff. While we were waiting, I love the fact that people come up to you and that that they want to tell you what they do and don't like about everything, and it's great. So, and I don't know if I was spoiled, but some of the chats that just happened around me, with me, it was just, it was really cool. I don't know if getting war game stuff drop doesn't happen every day, I'd imagine too. So getting the insides intel and all of that was really, really fascinating. But
yep, there he is. Got to see a Tassie devil.
Yes, he has to. Yes, and you've got to keep away from them. They are blooming lethal, those things.
They are.
But you should see Tasmanian Devil in Tasmania. Of course, you should. But
absolutely.
But you see, this is where I just want to call it out. I mean, of course, Dwayne and his co-producer have organised all this, as you've said, and you've given him a shout out, as you always do. But you were keeping an eye on Sylvester. You showed him round, didn't you? So you had plenty of time with him.
Oh yes, yep. I think we'd been down to Port Arthur. There's some great tourist spots. What's that spot there? That looks like Sydney.
Sydney, I think,
where he was. Yeah, so that Philip was with him that day. But yeah, and did some because Tasmania's famous for its whiskies as well. So took him around, did a whiskey tour. There was a fan at the event on the weekend who was also the president of the Tasmanian Transport Museum, I think it was. So he invited Sylvester over, and because Sylvester loves trains, he loves train travel. If you ever speak to him about his train travel, he's taken the train right across from London to Thailand, right through Russia and down through Mongolia and all those places. So it was fascinating in the trains too. But got to drive him around, show him some of the local spots, and it was just really nice.
Well, we've got really Doctor Who from Beyond here saying, I'm glad he enjoyed his time in Tassie. There's loads of photographs of this, of getting around. But yes, because I've seen that transport one as well. So yes, it was obviously a special interest of his. Gosh. Well, yes, I've been in his company at a couple of conventions, and yes, he's active, he's energetic. He is definitely trying to make sure everybody's happy. And I don't see why he's not a decent bloke, and of course he is. Obviously, you've got a good, decent Cyberman there.
Yeah, that was in Brisbane. There's a mob up there called Hire a TARDIS, and they had a heap of stuff. They had a Dalek, they had this Cyberman, they had a lot. They had a waxwork of Sylvester. They had a couple of Hemivores. and I think they had a TARDIS as well, which couldn't fit in the room. They had to put it outside, but it was there, definitely there. So
Oh well,
Man,
so
they-
that was great. I like the Brizzy events because they always like to come in and show off their wares. They've even got a Bessie, which they brought before to an event. They
okay.
didn't this time, but
So,
yeah,
well, that looks. And what's your next event? Yeah, I know you'll have them all in the pipeline. I think I saw a
we
trailer and you
have.
said, yeah, you have.
Yeah, we've got
What?
Matthew Waterhouse in March. Yeah, so we'll be doing 3 cities with him. We'll do Melbourne, Sydney, and Adelaide.
Yeah, God, you're on a roll. You're on a roll, man.
Yeah.
Now, this lovely nostalgic talk cannot last. It never does. But let's just push it a little bit further. Here we go. Around and about today in time, let's imagine you two lads and the thread. You can go in a time hotel, and would you like to go back to in the past and watching An Unearthly Child Part 3 again, The Invasion, Dragonfire, Silver Nemesis, or the ultimate four, actually the climax of the Trial of a Time Lord series? Which era, which time hotel bedroom are you going to go in to watch that program? Which one would you choose?
Who do you want to go first?
Go on then, Dwayne.
For me, it would be The Invasion, Part 6. Absolutely. Yeah, just that. I love that era, that sort of pre-unit. Well, it's unit by that stage, isn't it? But
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
the pre-color unit time. And yeah, one of my favorite periods in history. I always feel like I was born a bit too late, being born in the early 70s. I should have been born 20 years earlier because I think the 60s and 70s are probably my favorite decades. There you go.
What about you, Dan?
if you had been born, you could have recorded it off screen too. That would have been good.
I could have kept them all to myself.
I reckon on that list, it would. I was leaning towards The Invasion too, or The Ultimate Foe, mainly because The Ultimate Foe is a wrap up. But it's 8 episodes in The Invasion, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, all of those are like halfway through, aren't they? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they do feel as though they're, they could be a tiny bit shorter. Morgan Dean here says, An Unearthly Child. Can you imagine starting from the very beginning and discovering it all over again? That's way beyond. I know that's way beyond my empathy scale. I don't know if I can actually really go that far in imagination. Actually, SG, I'd pick Ultimate 4. That was the megabyte modem, and when you had a disco light in a cupboard, which was going to affect everything, and you had a lovely matrix effect, them little kind of blue, kind of crystal
Of course,
things.
Anthony Ainley turns up again.
You did. Well, I mean, that was the part 13, wasn't it? When it was amazing when suddenly he said he'd been messing with the Matrix and he discovered corruption and he discovered all these things, and you went, oh wow. I think part 13 for me is the one that rocked me. The only thing that's rocked me since is as Timeless Children, Sledgehammer TARDIS, Spy Generation. Oh my God, there's been a few since. But yeah, then I was like, whoa, I was at university and I was watching it on a crinkly, I could hardly see. It was so bad reception. And all I heard was the drama of it. The Fantasy Factory and all the rest of it, him in quicksand or whatever it was, because we were back in the Matrix nonsense, weren't we? But of course, you had that great Valeyard depiction going on, and that's what Doctor Who Before and Beyond
Those last
about.
2 episodes, and at the time, I had no idea all the chaos behind the production of it.
No, that it's been rewritten and everything. Julian Gabriel Clark, to actually go there, I would have to be Dragonfire. Now, nobody thinking for a second that they'd like to have a little bit of Dragonfire?
And you mean out of that list? I mean, that's a cool bit. I remember that was very much like of its time, that one.
It was. It was quite a surprise to see that actual effect. It was also, for a different reason, that poor little girl. It should be somebody's daughter, but my God, it was like I just thought, oh God, this is like Panto. I don't know. It was a misfit. That coffee shop where you saw Ace serving, it just seems so unreal, like this supermarket coffee shop. I was like, oh my God.
Hey,
That
I,
bit
I
was
don't,
problematic
I,
for me.
I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but that monster there looks suspiciously like the monster out of what's Independence Day at the end.
Oh,
It's
yes,
like
yes,
it's like they've completely ripped that off because this
that's
obviously
true.
came out
That's
probably
true. It
10
is a
years
very,
before.
very similar design, I have to say. Boomer Doug, love the
If I was in Dragonfire, I'd probably end up just hanging around.
At Shoppers World.
Yeah. Well, look
Yeah,
at
there
that,
you go.
hanging around, as you're saying. Look at them. They're all trying it. I mean, good old Sylvester in his rehearsal garb. You can tell when he's got his glasses on. And he's obviously experimenting how he's going to do this. Of course, none of us actually really know why the doctor decided to do a cliffhanger, literal, because I still don't know why, do you two? Why the doctor decided to just go over the railings.
He did get asked about it at the thing the other week. Dwayne, do you remember his explanation? There was something that was
Sylvester's,
meant to happen.
he would have said, I can't remember, it's too long ago.
Yeah.
But I think the book says that he peers over and sees a ledge and he tries to get down to the ledge, but it's too far and he's just not quite far enough. But then he drops down onto it.
He sees the ledge.
But you don't see it on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Now, come on, we're all diehard Doctor Who fans. Now, I know you've had to give your choice and you've done that, but nobody's saying Unearthly Child. Is this because part 1 is so distinct?
Part 3 is pretty crap.
Yeah, I know. The Forest of Fear it was. And what about Silver Nemesis? Because I assume you've got your season, sets, Blu-ray set. I haven't watched it again yet, but
boy, Silver Nemesis, the new edition for Blu-ray is fantastic. I love it. It makes so much more sense. No, just the edits. The edit's been changed. It's so much better.
That's what. And they've got they've put some. They've replaced a few things that were a bit crap at the time with things that make way more sense. There was even cut scenes that they've put back that I was like, whoa, that inflection just changes the whole thing. Is that your reaction?
You've got me intrigued now.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Definitely worth watching.
Well, the thing that got me was the first thing that got me was the scene where they're at the jazz playing the jazz.
Yes.
And Ace is getting the tape signed. Well, as they walk away, that scene goes on a little bit longer, and the camera pans to those two guys with their cyber headphones on.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So they're there watching them in that scene. And so in the original cut, you only see them when they start appearing and shooting at them. And you're thinking, where did these guys come from? And it just gives them a bit more presence before they arrive.
Yeah.
Got you.
And there's that whole scene in part 3 where in the castle with DeFlores and his sidekick there's some kind of something going on with the Cybermen, and then next scene they're there with their cyber headphones on, and you think,
there's a betrayal.
Yes, but that whole scene is put in properly, and it plays out properly, and it's just how it should have been in the first place. It would have made a lot more sense.
Well, the thumbnail for today, it all depends what's out there, but obviously our thumbnail for today was all Capaldi, and people have been waiting patiently because he gave an interview to Hello magazine about, future and his possible time in Doctor Who and all the rest of it. So that's going to come up in 1 minute's time. But Boomer Doug, who's just had eye surgery, please find his channel, please subscribe, and please get better. But he's obviously given us an item. He's done all these items before he had the eye surgery. So, we try and find our kind of parallel universes with Doctor Who. So this will just be a minute, everybody, just to see Boomer Doug's version of this. So here we go.
The 1950s science fiction movie, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, apart from being a very scary film, was also a comment on the McCarthy era and the persecution of suspected communists in America. So it was very much about paranoia and not being able to trust anybody. And now we've got similar parallels here with the Zygons, who also have pods and very cleverly disguise themselves as us. So what do you think? I think there's a definite influence of Invasion of the Body Snatchers on Terror of the Zygons. It's in no way a rip-off, though. The stories are completely different. But the sense of paranoia is there. I mean, as I mentioned in the voiceover, the Body Snatchers was a comment on the McCarthy era and the paranoia that was surrounding America at the time. It was the Reds under the beds thing. You couldn't trust anyone, even people you knew. And there's a degree of that comes across in Terror of the Zygons. I mean, clearly the Zygons are shapeshifters, and maybe it's a coincidence, but they also have pods. So there are some similarities. In this case, definitely not a rip-off, but I would hazard a guess that the movie has been seen once or twice. What do you guys think?
What do we think? I mean, Terror of the Zygons, hey. Dwayne?
I would venture to say that every story in season 13, bar the android invasion, was ripping something off. So you've got, Pyramids of Mars was Egyptology, Planet of Evil, Jekyll and Hyde, Brain of Morbius, Frankenstein, Seeds of Doom is, what's Seeds of Doom?
The Thing. Is it The Thing?
The Thing. The Thing from Another World.
Yeah.
So, that they were all homaging something, but they did it so well. It doesn't seem offensive in the slightest.
Yeah.
And if they were ripping something off with the android invasion, I'd love to know, but it was just, it was a Terry Nation script. So that was separate from the rest of it, I guess. But ripping off the basic idea, but changing the story to make it essentially Doctor Who is what Doug was saying.
It kind of gives you, and I think Doctor Who does that well. It's an entry point to something a little bit more adult for later, if you get my gist. It gets you in, of course I wasn't watching Hammer House at my age then, but, you're then aware of The Mummy, you're then aware of the Hand of Fear one, all those, it's just fab. So yeah, now we've mentioned the Peter Capaldi. Let's get my words all wrong here. Why Doctor Who's 12th Doctor will never return to the series, explained by Peter Capaldi. Now, and I'll also say, because Julian Gabriel Clark, who's one of our Facebook members on our Sensebook community page, this isn't even news. Peter's always been honest that his time with Doctor Who is over and he's no interest in returning. It's what but it also gives us an excuse, Julian, to talk about the Peter Capaldi era and the importance or not of the 12th Doctor in the whole canon. And therefore, is it a shame that he might not come back for a multi-Doctor story like, David Tennant will multiple times? So, he's almost becoming the forgotten Doctor in discussions, because you've got the Tennant one coming back. People will always refer to the first female Doctor and whether they're like that or not. And then Capaldi seems to get lost in some of the crossfire. So what he said, just for those people who are just wondering, I'll just put it up here. So, they set it up that, he finished with Twice Upon a Time, blah, 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 which was a multi-Doctor story in itself. And some argue that wasn't really fair on him. Anyway, in the Halo magazine, Capaldi revealed he wasn't interested in coming back in any future Doctor Who episodes, while clarifying that he has nothing against the show and still considers himself a huge fan. Now, instead of having clipped bits, this is what he said. I'm still a huge fan of Doctor Who. It's not that I have anything against it, but there comes a time when you just have to leave things alone. I can't imagine the situation in which I'd be able to go back into it without enough influence over how it was going to be. And that, I think, is the rub. And, the article just goes on to say, on a clarification front, yes, it just shows you that he's not saying he won't come back, but he obviously he's got stipulations about control over his character and depending on the storyline. So I found it interesting that I didn't really know this, that I don't think Shooty has any control over his character. Let's be honest.
I remember at the time there was a lot of talk, both between Moffat and Capaldi, and a lot of the pre-game and post commentaries and things that you know, clearly Moffat did consult quite heavily with Capaldi around what they wanted to do with the Doctor, and you know, even down to him getting picks of which monsters he got to play with. And I'm pretty sure he had some say in terms of you know, wanting to do the thing with David Bradley as well. So I don't think that I think it's fair to say that I think he and Stephen Moffat were pretty tight. So I could imagine if without that dynamic, he probably would feel like it would be done. Yeah, they wouldn't have the control of a return.
We've got some interesting points here, and I'll then bring in Dwayne. Raymond Williams, hello. I'm pleased Peter stated that. He was a great Doctor. Never do a Tennant and ruin your legacy, which for me is what happened to poor Tennant in the so-called anniversary specials. PB props. I know it's been too long. I know, sorry. I do think that Peter feels betrayed by the show. He wanted to stay on for way longer, but he was essentially booted off. They gave him Twice Upon a Time as a parting gift. Well, I don't know. I mean, I hear different stories. I hear that it was done, the regeneration with the Mondasian Cybermen, and then I think Stephen Moffat was offered another Christmas special, and of course, which must have been blooming awkward. And then Julian Gabriel Clark, who obviously I know he's got the garb. The 12th Doctor is very much loved by a subset of the fandom who appreciate an older Doctor and the darker approach this series took. And of course, it never can be denied. He was a hell of a Doctor Who fan as a kid. But he could...
I haven't met a Doctor Who fan, an actual Doctor Who fan that doesn't like Capaldi. I know the general audience, there might have been preferences, but I don't think I've never struck anyone that said that he wasn't a good Doctor.
No. Anyway, Dwayne, what your thoughts on this news or non-news?
Well, I think it is non-news to an extent, because we've got 5 past Doctors from the new series run now, and only one of them's come back. Yeah. So none of the others have come back at all.
And he lit himself.
Sure, the others might be open to it, but they haven't done it yet. Eccleston's never going to do it. But Eccleston did go and do Big Finish. So there's always an option to do Big Finish. Now, a lot of fans won't consider Big Finish to be real Doctor Who, but for my part, I consider Big Finish to be better in many ways as far as storytelling goes than anything we ever get on television. That's why I love it so much and always have. So when we get well, I'll tell you something interesting. I just listened to the first appearance of Jo Martin as the Fugitive Doctor, and because she appeared in their 60th anniversary series, which the Jo Martin one was put off for 12 months and then just released only a couple of weeks ago. And I really, really enjoyed it. There were some little clues in there dropped as to who the Fugitive Doctor might be, a bit of mystery around it, you know, so it doesn't wipe out the past for you know, classic Who fans. And it got me interested in where they might be going with the character. So Big Finish can do good stories that get your interest going, and they can take these characters in real proper directions where they should have taken them on TV in the first place. But I'm biased.
And after this item, folks, we will discuss the Paul McGann elements in Big Finish. Now here, Peter Capaldi says, and this is what I mean. I mean, as the 12th Doctor, I mean, number one, will he come back or not? Well, he's basically stated his conditions. And as you said, Dwayne, well, not all of them have come back anyway, but we tend to always talk about a multi-Doctor story. However, what a miss it would be. He says, first and foremost, he's not human. I think it's interesting to clarify this. So I think he struggles to create a version of himself that humans find easy to be around. He's always trying to save the universe. So if he upsets someone, that has to come with the territory. But then later on, he probably gets a bit worried and wishes he could go back and say, I'm sorry I upset you. I like when he's strange. And I think it's important. It's a bit Tom Baker-ish, this, where Tom Baker was very aware how alien he had to be. He's not a human at all. And I think it's just nice to have that clarified. But it's so weird how the stories are, you know, the BBC or somebody or Chris Chibnall just said, I need a new Doctor, a younger Doctor, whatever, because to me, he went very Pertwee in the end, didn't he? I mean, I thought he was just I mean, the hair, the red, you know, I mean, I loved it. And good for him. I mean, just like a lot of doctors seem to ape the Troughton in some way, let's be honest. The Troughton doctor is a brilliant template. I think Capaldi was really tapping in a lot more to the Pertwee one in the silhouette and that, wasn't he?
He was. And what I really love about this statement is that you can kind of tell that Peter himself has put a lot of thought into this character, this specific character of the 12th Doctor that he portrayed. So there'll be other actors like if you say to Shooty, you know, what's your character? He'll go, he's a Time Lord. He's got 2 hearts. And that's it. That's all he'll think of. But Peter here's thought of characteristics that he has worked on to put into the character of his Doctor. And so he obviously cares about it. And which is probably why he has so many stipulations about coming back. He should probably be given that control at some point.
Do you think you can read between the lines slightly that, you know, he's a top actor and he's done very well in Hollywood as well. So the point is, if he was going to revisit Doctor Who, which he loves, the stipulations are there because he doesn't want a watered down 12th Doctor, because sometimes in multi-Doctor stories, you do end up becoming a stereotype. Like, unfortunately, the first Doctor has twisted and contorted away from where William Hartnell's was. It's not the same. And it depends on the writer, of course. I mean, he's turned into a few different things. And so basically the stipulations are, well, has he got a key role? Doesn't it sound a bit Tom Baker, 5 Doctors? That am I just, you know, popping back, or is it too soon, or whatever? I just wonder whether I can read between the tea leaves here that basically he does feel as though he was disserved at the end. I just wonder about that Twice Upon a Time, because a multi-Doctor story, but basically it diluted what he'd done in the Mondasian Cybermen finale.
You go, Dan. We're being too polite to each other. You go.
No, look, I think he was in on it, and I don't think he would have done it if he didn't enjoy it. I'm sure he jumped at the chance of working with David Bradley and Stephen Moffat one last time. So, and I'm, you know, I'm pretty sure that, you know, it was good to see him keep the hair arc going right to the bitter end. So.
I mean, the speech he had in the Mondas, was it the it was, you know, his proper,
that was perfect. His last regeneration scene, I remember hearing him, you know, talk about all the work that he and Stephen Moffat they set out to put every emotion into, or every idea that they'd ever thought of into that last scene. But I know there was a part of me that was like, come on, man, just die.
Well, PB Props here, Nick says, Peter told me that he wanted to outdo Tom. That was his aim. The very next year, he was told that he would no longer be needed. Colin Baker was the same. Colin Baker, well, he wanted to hang around, didn't he? He was up for it. He was really, full of gusto. And again, a year later, he's out. It's such a shame. But this was the speech. I mean,
well, Sylvester McCoy too. Yeah, he was telling the story at the events that he was told that they wanted to do a 4th season, and if you didn't agree to a 4th season, they wouldn't keep him on for a 3rd. So he agreed to the 4th, and then they cancelled it anyway. So he felt quite ripped off about that too.
And then some doctors seem to just drag on. I thought the Jodie Whittaker era just seemed to go on for longer than I thought we needed. So, yeah, I know people sometimes mention the Zygon invasion and all the rest of it, but here, I do what I do because it's right, because it's decent, and above all, because it's kind. And, of course, the kind bit he gets to play again in Twice Upon a Time. And that's, I think, the problem, that this speech is almost diminished by it being slightly aped again. It's just that, you know, it's kind. If I run away today, good people will die. If I stand and fight, some of them might live. Maybe not many, maybe not for long. But hey, maybe there's no point in any of this at all, but it's the best I can do. And I will stand here doing it until it kills me. And of course, it was a great moment because he had the two masters there, really, didn't he? The master and Missy. And he was getting at her conscience. It was brilliant. And of course, that played out a little bit later in the next scene or two. But obviously, I killed that script there. But he really, really delivered that. You could feel the passion in the lines when he did it.
Mm.
And I just think I miss that. I miss a doctor who feels on top of his game, who authoritative, very moral. Now, I'm trying my best to think, well, in something like Dot and Bubble, the big moment was for Shooty was near the end, wasn't it? When he was angry about, the racist, ageist population. But again, I suppose here we're not necessarily fair just comparing Shooty to Capaldi. The issue is the script here is better to deliver. There's more to it.
Yeah, I really felt bad about the fact that Peter Capaldi never lived to see, like his doctor never lived to see. He never was able to acknowledge that Missy did turn good.
Yeah.
Real shame.
Yes, his work was not seen to be done. I think he's always my biggest problem. I think with the Capaldi era was not the doctor. Although I never liked the hoodie look and the sunglasses thing. I never quite got into that. I didn't know if it was like an old man. I'm saying he's an old man. He's at my age, being cool, but it was the companions. I just think that didn't quite fit the Capaldi doctor. The Jenna Coleman bit, one of the best bits was actually when she was leaving, and that was quite sweet how it was played. But I never quite think he gelled with this companion or the Bill Potts or the Nardole. I just thought it was just not quite right.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you. I liked Clara, both iterations of Clara, because she was a different kind of person. Well, it was a different arc during the 11th Doctor run, wasn't it? And then that arc was kind of done and dusted by Series 8. So, I liked Clara a lot. It's interesting that my daughter, we got to the end of Series 9. And my daughter's 8. We've been watching the new series, and so we're watching a few of the Christmas episodes. We just finished Dr. Mysterio a couple of days ago, and we're into Series 10 now with Bill. But she said to me just only a day or two ago, she said, "I miss Clara. I really miss Clara."
Gosh.
So she really connected with her, and so did I. Really, I really liked her a lot. So. The opinion's very divided on Clara, but you either love her or hate her, don't you?
I think it was. I'm trying to be. I always try and be fair. What is it? Sometimes you think, why is my instinct just fighting this? I just seem to fight a companion who always has to be made somehow special or a little bit mouthy. And so it's interesting how I feel about Donna Noble sometimes, because I really like the Donna Noble character. But Clara being the impossible girl, I thought, oh, please. I don't know, but I liked how she mellowed by Face the Raven. So I find it a hard period for me regarding companion.
I think Michael Q in the comments has nailed Clara for me.
Right. Go on, Dan. What were you going to say?
Oh yeah. No, that goes without saying, Michael. Yeah.
Maybe this is what I'm not getting.
I think because I've reflected on this, because I honestly, when you've got 3 years of Sarah Jane, I don't think I ever had an ill thought about her as the companion. Like I was dialed into her from beginning to end in terms of how she portrayed the character. The thing with the Clara thing, I get, because I think I had the same problem with Rose towards the end, but I never had it for Freema Agyeman. I think it's when they, how Moffat said once, we don't like boy geniuses. I think it's when you take the humility out of the companion. You can have them be as assertive and as taking the lead as you want, but you've got to keep the humility. if you're going to put arrogance or ego into anyone, you put it in the Doctor, because it's not pretty.
I think that's a damn good point, actually. I think that's I think you're resonating with what I couldn't articulate, actually, that I just struggle when, it's the humility thing,
But also she went through a massive trauma in series 8. Between series 8 and 9, she's changed again because she had the death of her boyfriend, which was a massive thing for her. So that would have affected her greatly. And I think the Doctor was very forgiving of her outbursts in his direction, because he was understanding of her, and sort of he wasn't allowing her to walk all over him, but he was just giving her space to express herself how she wanted. I probably looking into it a bit too deeply, but that's
no.
how I look at it.
To be fair, I actually think that humanized that part of her arc. But to be honest, I found her grating back in the Matt Smith era with all the different versions of her. Because even Oswin, when she's inside the Dalek, from the outset, from the minute we first see her in Asylum of the Daleks, even though it's not the same character, she's she's pretty quippy straight out of the gate, which I think flavored her from the outset.
Yeah. It's
But she's still hot.
It's certainly got the thread fired up, and it is going either way, from hot to not. But so PB props. The problem with the modern era is that the storytelling is always trying to up the ante. Rose being what she became, the end of the universe, and it being rebooted. Yeah. What else can I know? The Impossible Girl. And yes, I mean, it was just mentioned in the thread that she had an interesting story arc, because it was her hubris in a way, because she got herself into trouble with the Raven, didn't she? And the Doctor couldn't get her out. It was an amazing story. And I think the death scene was, I thought, quite shocking. I thought the slow motion, remember when Mary Whitehouse used to go on about the slow motion of a strangulation in Deadly Assassin? Whoa. I thought.
Freeze frame.
Yeah. But I thought the slow motion death of Clara was gruesome.
And the silent scream, that was probably just as bad, wasn't it?
It was, with Murray Gold on top of his game. It was fantastic.
How did you feel though when Moffat reversed it in the last episode and recovered her?
Well, I
didn't like it that much. It was, it just wasn't that satisfying for me, the way it was done. I would have been happy with bringing her back somehow, but just the way it was done and then taking off with that other character just didn't seem quite right to me.
It had a sense of Perry at the end with King Yukanos. It had a sense of that to me. You feel cheated. You just feel cheated. You invested in. You've just either thought one of your hot characters has just been killed by the Raven, and you go through all that. Like we always did. I remember when Jo Grant left as a little kid, and she was like a big sister or something. You sometimes do remember the companion leaving if it was one you got really attached to. And so I can see Clara's death being quite a big deal. And then, of course, you serve up, well, here she is. And it's like, oh, no. Do these people understand drama sometimes? I really don't know why. I mean, Jenna Coleman wasn't saying, I desperately need to be shown in the next, story. Anyway, on the Peter Capaldi moment, I want to ask you, lads, and I want to ask the thread. Here we go. We're talking about Peter Capaldi. What are his hottest and worst stories? Right? Because, obviously, if he did come back, we want him at his top end. So if I just showed
I've got the worst.
I'll just show everybody. I've got 4 slides to remind everybody, because it seems like so long ago. So there you go. His first kind of season or so. These are, by the way, the star ratings you see in here are from the Radio Times. So they have, from this period, have said that Kill the Moon and Listen were the best there. I'll just go through first. You can see they've got The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar and Flatliners high scoring. And then you go down to The Woman Who Lived and The Forest of the Night. Just to keep reminding you, Smile, which I'll be intrigued by because I know Dwayne's just seen that again. Face the Raven, which I like, it's got 3, but the Zygon Invasion and Hellbent have scored big. And then just to finish it off, to remind you, World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls, 5 stars. The other one was The Empress of Mars and Extremis, but of course that was a trilogy. Just to remind everybody, so where do you stand, Dwayne? I know you've just seen a Smile again, but some of his best and some of his worst.
Well, I think my number one worst Capaldi is probably my least favorite episode of the entire new series, which would have to be In the Forest of the Night. I just have never connected with that story. I think it's absolutely awful. It doesn't make any sense in the Doctor Who universe. It just doesn't belong there. So that's the worst one. I came across, I was looking at the list thinking, oh, there's a few ones I really, really like in there. I've always liked Robots of Sherwood. That's one of the early Capaldi. That was probably my favorite of the year. It's like I'm a bit of a Mark Gatiss supporter. I like his stories very much, so that was one of those that I liked. But and I think potentially Under the Lake is one of the best single episodes of New Who ever. It's just perfect in its execution. It is scary. It's got a great cliffhanger. It's got you guessing the whole time. I think Under the Lake's probably one of the best ones, but as a complete story, probably The World Enough and Time.
Yeah.
It was,
by the way,
incredible.
Just before I change slide, you can see that Radio Times is hitting in the middle and all the rest of it. Time Heist gets 1 star. Does that surprise you?
No. Oh, yes, it does, because it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. What about you, Dan? I mean, Time Heist, an absolute stinker, apparently.
I agree with Julian. Kill the Moon with the moon as an egg really irritated me. It was in the same realm as in Forest of the Night, where the forest, just the whole world gets covered in greenery. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting though is, remember the 3 scripts for Deep Breath, Forest, Robots of Sherwood, and Into the Dalek leaked before the season came back? Well, I got copies of them at the time and read them all before I saw the TV. And it's amazing. I remember reading the scripts thinking, wow, this is fantastic. And then when the show actually released, being disappointed with the execution of like Into the Dalek and Robots of Sherwood, which to me says what a good script it was, but also how unsatisfying the realization is, especially Into the Dalek.
You've got, by the way, here, and we were saying it just before we came on today. Raymond Williams is saying, love Time Heist, needed to be a 2-parter to be done properly. And this I can't escape this, lads. Isn't it weird that, okay, you can hear Raymond Williams saying Time Heist could have been served better by being a 2-parter. And then if I move along to the trilogy, when you had Extremis, the pyramid at the end of the world, and was it the Lake of the Land? You suddenly had this.
Was pretty crap too.
Yeah, but
I disagree.
Why did that get 3 episodes when some of them were, rushed through? And I just
Extremis is connected, but it's kind of a separate thing.
Yeah,
if you look at their story as a whole,
it's
very different to the other 2.
I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know, I think in the middle bland I'm seeing around.
You'll be surprised when you go back after doing your reviews on the latest series. You go back and watch these, and you then say how bland they are. Then they're not.
It's interesting, isn't it? That was my reaction at the time as a viewer. Whether we've now fallen into anything of you know what I'm saying. Comparatively speaking, you suddenly thought, "Oh my God." And that's what we were saying, just to share with everybody listening and watching. We were saying just before we started about this, and we were saying, gosh, if you did a kind of, Space Babies followed by Devil's Cord back to back, if you had a Peter Capaldi followed by a Shooty Gatwa, would it look like the same program? I mean, would it just on...
No.
Because... there is complexity. You could always guarantee with Stephen Moffat a complexity. Sometimes it got too complex. Sometimes a bit too out there. the kill the moon. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't know how you can sell that as anything in that should have been in the fantasy series. But I look at this. Everybody mentions the Zygon one, of course they do.
I think the star ratings are pretty accurate on these.
Do you think?
I think they're pretty close.
Interestingly, when I watched Smile today, I noticed it was written by the same guy that wrote In the Forest of the Night.
Yeah.
And I thought, but I didn't mind Smile. I thought Smile was a much better story.
Yeah. And I suppose you do.
Not great, though.
I mean, I would say Mummy on the Orient Express needed more fleshing out. It was a great concept, but it needed a cliffhanger. It needed that kind of, rather than you always had the timer and all the rest of it. It was just too neat. And you could see where the formula was going with that.
I would suggest that Mummy on the Orient Express had a cliffhanger in reverse.
Yeah.
Because it sort of opened with
Yeah.
with the jump scare.
Yeah.
So that was like a reverse cliffhanger. I like it.
That's the problem though, Dwayne. We started, when we did The Unquiet Dead, and we suddenly saw, as Doctor Who fans in the New Who era, that they might do the cliffhanger pre the credits, basically. That's your little shot. And you think, oh no, but maybe I'm just still arcing after an era that you can't have, because people binge watch now. So even if you did cliffhangers, it's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah.
Doctor Who, Before and Beyond. I do love Deep Breath, Listen, and Mummy on the Orient Express from Capaldi's first season. Yeah. I don't know what you call the creatures in Deep Breath. That the face with the like
Clockwork monsters.
Yeah, I quite thought that was quite a feature. Husbands of River Song is much maligned. Sorry, but the final scenes with yeah. Well, what were you going to say?
I will say that. I've softened a lot now, but I was really upset by Death in Heaven when I first saw it. I could not stand that episode. I felt like I was completely ripped off because of how it ended. I didn't really like the concept behind the story. No, not the Missy reveal at all. I like Missy, but probably what they did to the Brigadier as well.
The Cyber Brigadier.
Yeah, I just didn't like any of that. But I've softened a little to it now.
I know. Yeah, I think whether, as Julian Gabriel Clark, whether this is news or not, I certainly do want an excuse to talk about Capaldi, and I do want an excuse to talk about the 12th Doctor, and to maybe, as Dwayne is quite rightly saying, maybe give some of these episodes another look, because time's gone. And maybe our view has changed if it was a little bit more doubtful in the first place. But as Paul Richards says, Capaldi was terrific. Soon as he's on screen, he has that strong presence. Yeah, it's conviction. It's a conviction Doctor. And maybe that's what I'm lamenting. And Shooty, I think, can try all he wants, and he might be trying all he wants, but I want a Doctor that holds a room. And I don't mean by saying he's got this queer energy. I mean, he holds the room because he's got gravitas. That's what I miss with the Doctor. I miss that John Pertwee, Curse of Peladon. Sorry about this, Cybermat Strikes. He dominates the room and he tells the aliens off. I miss that. And I don't mean in dot and bubble shout at them. I mean, there was a way it was done. So yes, the Peter Capaldi era maybe never going to be even touched on again. And maybe that's for the good. We do not know. But lads, I think I should do this as a kind of punctuation mark, because people out there might be just starting to relax. Okay? It's as our toxic alert. And you heard from Sirens of Audio, Dwayne, who obviously big finish, you're much more kind of vested in this, and I have superficially take my choices. You'll get me into it more, I know. But oh dear, I'm intrigued what you thought of Paul McGann's utterances about this. So let me just come to it now. I had so many Capaldi things there. Here we go. So and relax. 500 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Tim Foley grabs the attention through its title, but it also features the monks from the 12th Doctor's era. Oh, how neat. And introduces the 8th Doctor's boyfriend. Tim says, David is always very good, giving broad briefs, though it had to be a story for the 8th Doctor and the monks. I decided I wanted to write a screwball comedy. The 8th Doctor is a very sexy doctor after all. I continue. And what can you say about Chris, the boyfriend to the Doctor? Well, we have our will they or won't they lovers. Yes, Chris is the Doctor's boyfriend, and as you can imagine, he's having a tough time of it. The story's monsters are the monks, who featured in 3 adventures on TV, as we've just mentioned. Tim tells Vortex tremendously difficult. They're such strange nebulous creatures with different ideas about them cropping up in their original trilogy. But I love that. It's very alien, blah, 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 blah. But Tim sums up his Big Finish story with gay rom-com with the monks. Please enjoy the bit where our heroes have to strip. Now, I don't know, Dwayne. Dwayne had thoughts on this, and fair dues, he knows what Big Finish are like. So I'm going to go to Dwayne first. But Dwayne, are you still holding true on what you were thinking?
Yes, I am. However, the thing with Big Finish is they've done so much good stuff. If they have one, they have put out things that aren't, to my taste. Absolutely the case. But there are clues in there that tell me that this is, well, he said it's a screwball comedy. So if it's written as a screwball comedy, yes, that guy thinks he may think he's the Doctor's boyfriend, and be acting that way, or they may be having to pretend that they're together for some reason. I don't know. It doesn't go into detail about it, but Big Finish can bait you with things like this at times, and it turns out that there's a reasonable explanation for it. So you can't just jump to conclusions all the time on this. Like, I never jumped to conclusions when I heard things about the TV series until they happened, but now it's happened so often, I've started jumping to conclusions. So when it comes to Big Finish, because they've got such a good record, well, I'm not automatically jumping to the worst conclusion just yet.
Yeah, and that it's important that we have that said, because you know what Big Finish are like, you know what they're up to, you know how they might tease and all the rest of it, and I don't. So I think it is important to say. But just before I come to Dan, and I know the thread is now collapsing in a heap, a little bit about this. So don't
worry, guys, I'll take the pressure off.
But let's just and it is true. They do say it's a screwball comedy. The 8th Doctor's very sexy after all, so let's go with it. They say boyfriend to the Doctor. Now, whether that's just to trigger us or to just get the headlines that they've got now. Chris is the Doctor's boyfriend, and as you can imagine, he's having a tough time of it. Now, I don't know if that means unrequited love or whether he's just having a tough time in life. That's all. And then, of course, it's a gay rom-com with the monks, and enjoy the bit where the heroes have to strip. Now, I know that can be done cheekily, but there you go. Dan, how's this sitting so far?
Well, they better be careful. They don't want to get Me Too'd with Captain Jack there with all the nudity. But I mean, this is why Big Finish will never be canon. It's just, you can't.
Oh, now who's trolling? No.
Like, seriously, there is nothing about this article that makes me go, "Oh, I really want to get into this one."
Do you want it for your Christmas present?
But they not. It's not even about the stuff with the Doctor. I mean, I don't come to Doctor Who for a what was the word? Riotous comedy. Like, it's just I don't know. There's just nothing there that screams Doctor Who. Like
that. I know that. Okay, the comedy thing gets me. I mean, if I bought Dwayne's hopefully the theory of this, and it's just a screwball comedy, so they're taking the pee, and it's just kind of. I just think, why is Doctor Who going down this romance road? I mean, there's discussion about Yaz and the 13th Doctor, whether the Big Finish do anything with that. Obviously, the TV slightly hinted at it. Then you have Rogue and Shooty Gatwa's Doctor. Then, and before you know it, you're starting to go, hold on a minute. Whether you think one Doctor out of the 15 might, like in the Aztecs, have a tiny moment where he looks as though he's slightly caring towards a woman or something. Now we seem to have every Doctor really is hot to trot. And remember, in Wild Blue Yonder, the David Tennant Doctor was saying, oh, is that what I am now? Oh, I fancy Isaac Newton. And it was all very, oh, for God's sake. And it becomes like the Doctor's turned into not this man or woman, whatever, with gravitas. He's turned into a Time Lord who sounds like a teenager, who's just lusting. And whether it's romance for fun, romance because you really do want, I just think either have they run out of stories for Doctor Who, and this is all I've got left. And just as I come back to Dwayne, he did say Paul McGann only recently, Doctor Who's
just going to bring that up.
Yeah. David Tennant, for all the snogging, can't be a love interest. So he was saying that the Doctor shouldn't be doing this. So now, so that makes me wonder whether what you're saying, Dwayne, is probably on the money.
Yeah. It's the Eighth Doctor's had dalliances with a few people. Even his first Big Finish audio companion, Charlie, was head over heels in love with him. But it was, and it wasn't even unrequited. It was more he loved her as a person, but not romantically. But she obviously was young and would have taken it further. But he restrained himself in that romance. Oh, what's that? What's that about Scherzo? I just saw that on the previous.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
Because Scherzo, people get upset during Scherzo. We were meant to kiss in that one, but actually we melded into one. So that's an interesting story, because that's a two-hander where the Doctor and Charlie actually start evolving into one creature, and they've got to sort of disentangle themselves. And that was written by Rob Shearman, who wrote Dalek. So he writes some very interesting things. But it was based on his experiences, Rob Shearman's experiences, not on the Doctor and Charlie's. He was just putting that into the story. But it didn't mean that they suddenly had a romantic connection.
Well, Stephanie Barrett, good to see you. I've seen you in the thread, and I know I'm trying to get them up at the right time. Makes a good and interesting point. Russell T. Davies has always said the key target kids are age 8 to 12. So why are they adding sexualized scenes and dialogue? And I suppose that's very true. If he's decided to take Doctor Who in a different direction, that's what happens. I'd prefer it to go darker, of course. But if it was more for the dads and mums, he has been saying openly it's for 8-year-olds. Now, Dwayne, is Big Finish, obviously, I suppose it's not for 8-year-olds, really, is it? I think it.
If they can afford Big Finish, their parents must have won the lotto, I'd say. The 8-year-olds.
That's it. So maybe do you get a sense with your overview of Big Finish that they do have a feeling that they can go a little bit more adult? I don't know, that it's a bit more mature.
Well, sometimes, but in the general Doctor Who ranges, because you think that story that this is taken from is from a box set called Classic Doctors, New Monsters. Paul McGann's classed as one of the classic Doctors. So they've taken new monsters from the new series and put them in. So that's why the reference to the monks. Yeah. So sometimes they take a bit of license with those specific box sets. And I think the Classic Doctors, New Monsters range is kind of running out of steam, because there aren't really that many fantastic sort of standout monsters in the new series, if you really think about it. I think they're sort of starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel there, but yeah, with the general Doctor Who stories, no, there's never anything like that. They do take a bit more license with the Eighth Doctor from time to time, though, with some of the other storylines.
Yeah,
so that previous article that you had up had no mention of what the actual monsters were either, if you recall. It was all about the Doctor and their fanfic relationships.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, So, I mean, I'm just trying to join the dots for the thread and myself, really. In this original article, Paul McGann said, that David Tennant's the David Cassidy of doctors. And of course, I know it's all nice, loving cheek with each other. So, but basically, he seems to be parking the Paul McGann doctor as not wanting to go down that road. But for me, Charlie's love of the doctor is complicated. He is her everything. She was 18 when she stowed away. So the doctor is her family and her love interest. Yep, it's a complicated feeling, blah, blah, blah. But as he says on the right-hand side, the doctor needs to be asexual. There's no sex in the TARDIS. I think that's the rule you don't break. I think if that happened, Doctor Who would lose one of its hugest advantages. You can't go back after that. So I have to hope that when I show Dwayne this quotation and article, that, as Dwayne is saying, he's holding on to, I decided I wanted to write a screwball comedy. It's just, they really do seem to be. I mean, if I was highlighting this for a saloon, I'd be going, a very sexy doctor. So they want to lay into that. Then they want to lay into the fact that they love the word boyfriend. They want to really play into that. It's not like just an interest for a moment. And it sounds like a soap opera that the boyfriend's having a tough time in his life or something. And then, of course, a gay rom-com leads me into a slightly different direction. But then it mentions that the heroes have to strip. Well, you could have to strip at an airport, let's be honest. It could be part of a plot, couldn't it? It's got nothing necessary. So I think there's a point I think we might be being teased a bit, as Dwayne said.
I think you're being baited there.
Do you think?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
not working.
And keep in mind that this would have... No, you're being baited to get a reaction. That's for sure. But you also keep in mind this would have been written a long time ago, before the series 1 of Disney Who went out, and now everyone's going to be getting the message that this kind of thing is just not what fans want.
Well, I hope so. It's just that I
not
think,
even as a joke.
No, and this is what I mean. I'm starting to wonder if from RTD, go backwards, whoever's the showrunner, the writer, the person talking to PR, the person giving any interview, can we stop, please, any version of baiting fans from go and touch grass to do this, to do that? Because I just think it's not a settled fandom at the moment. I just think... Ugh.
Can I say something else? The other thing is, given the state the show's in, we need more serious Doctor Who. The comedy that was in Doctor Who was only ever there to take the tension out of the horror.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be running the show like, laugh after laugh after laugh. It's just, it loses, it breaks the audience. So
yeah,
that's my view.
Yeah. And as I said, that story is taken from a box set that features not just the 8th Doctor. So the 8th Doctor has got one story. The 7th Doctor's got one story. Incidentally, that's the first time that they're bringing Ray back from Delta and the Bannermen and going to be traveling with her for a little while. They've got a 4th Doctor story and a 2nd Doctor story. So there's a whole cross section of different Doctors, different styles throughout this box set. So it's just one of many box sets.
Ray, the story there is my politics lecturer, when he was teaching me the politics of the presidency at university, he's called David Griffiths, and his daughter Sarah Griffiths was Ray. And when he was trying to lecture us on the politics of the presidency, it was around 1989 period. He was saying to us, because he realized I was a Doctor Who fan, and he was saying, my daughter's gone up for this part. And bless him, he was excited that I think, the idea that she might have been the companion. And that was what she was hoping for. And so he told me all the bits and the bobs about his daughter. And you're a Doctor Who fan, and my daughter might be the next companion. And I was like, oh my God. And, all this was going on when, yes, I know Americans there, Divine and Dragon. I wasn't, President Pa. I was bothered about the next companion. And, that's interesting. I might be intrigued there because Sarah,
So there's one story there, but there's actually a 7th Doctor box set coming out featuring Ray as the companion.
So
that's next year.
So she gets her moment.
She does. Finally.
So all this talk about sex in the TARDIS and everything, I have a new item when I do my classic reviews, and you know they've appointed an intimacy coordinator for season 2. And I can't imagine why you need an intimacy coordinator on Doctor Who, but it has forced me every time I do a classic review now, and I'm banking them everyone for Christmas. You'll see them. I have this item now. Just this will just hopefully make you laugh. There you go. Does that detox you, or does that toxic? I'm not really.
That did make me laugh. That's good.
It's just, if you really had to look at Classic Who and think, God, if you needed an intimacy coordinator now, if you look back, where were the problematic moments? So, we were, when we look at
There's a wind whipping up. I can feel it through my clothes. That's
Well-
about as bad as we got.
Well, we got Robots of Death. We were doing Robots of Death the other day, and I'm gonna upload that soon, everybody, for Christmas. But in our review of that, one of the ones was when Yuvanov says, "Where have all the big ones gone?" And it's just some problematic. I love all that, and I'm going to release my Brothers in Bondage, and you just think, oh, I just love Doctor Who when it's so innocent. I don't know. Yes, let's hope it's just baiting. Let's hope it's just trying to grab a headline. Let's hope people are not trying to. He's just trying not to do this too much to the fans, please. Try and sell your stuff a different way. So, are you detox for the weekend now, Dwayne?
Absolutely. I absolutely am. Yeah. I don't think anything could tox me after the month I've just had. So
True.
I'm
Well,
fine.
a feeling of accomplishment, I would have thought. It all worked.
Yes.
And also you've I mean, I think they both look like troopers, and I know Janet, obviously, for obvious reasons, will be in Australia a lot more. But yeah, it must be nice to actually, spend some time. You're in their orbit for a little while. Whether it happens again,
I'm definitely going to sign up for the Matthew Waterhouse round. I think I'm keen to meet Adric.
Yeah, I'll have to get my lookalike photograph up one day.
Have you seen A Weekend with Waterhouse on the Blu-ray for season 19? Is it? It's a brilliant documentary, and really, he seems like a really nice guy. So I'm on the basis of that and other things. Like his Big Finish work is really good too. So I'm looking forward to meeting him very much.
Can you ask him whether or not he liked Tom more than Peter Davison?
I'm sure someone will.
And I'm sure he'd almost give an answer, because I think he's a little bit more kind of direct sometimes, from what I've heard anyway. But anyway, so there you go. We've covered whether there's sex in the TARDIS. We've covered whether Capaldi would be a hell of a miss, just not even coming back just for an episode. But I must admit, my instinct is starting to be, please leave them alone, because I don't want any dilution of any Doctors, of any Daleks, of any Cybermen, of any Zygons, of any Silurians. I seem to be always arguing for a slight rest or pause and everything. So thanks everybody for joining us. That was our detox today on the 6th of December. And just final words here. Gore Vidal, in the US over the past few years, Romantasy tailored bookstores have been opening to great success. Well, I think we're running out of sci-fi concepts, so I think there seems to be a way of trying to do something. They did it with Discovery, didn't they? Star Trek Discovery. I mean, why we had all that with book, was it? Or something, I don't know. I get confused with all that. So thanks, lads. I know it's your end of a working week. It's your Friday into Saturday. So thanks for your time. Hopefully we'll do it again very
Pleasure.
soon. And please, everybody, like and subscribe. Sunday at 6, we will be analysing the trailer, and I've got some tasty debates. See you then. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you Sunday at 6.